Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth episode of Sable State of Mind. I'm your host, Alex Sable, and we have a lot of things to talk about. What happened this week with the New York Football Giants? So, we started off with joint practices with the Detroit Lions, and then we finished off with our first preseason game against the Detroit Lions, which the New York Giants end up falling 21-16. So we'll get to that later to go over the first two joint practices to see how they went and to talk about what has happened for this week. So we're going to talk about the first joint practice, and a lot of media was put out after the first joint practice with the New York Giants specifically. You saw that Daniel Jones and the offense struggled a little bit against the Detroit Lions' defense. The only positive part about this part is that it was Daniel Jones just missing throws. So the last couple years, the Giants have been struggling in joint practices, as in like wide receivers not getting open and the offense just looking very off all around. This time around, reporters were saying the receivers were open and they were spots that were open for the receivers to catch the ball. Daniel Jones was just overthrowing them by a little bit and just was off. And it's normal to be off. And again, this is the time to be off, especially in the practice time and joint practices. You don't want to be seeing this during the regular season. Daniel Jones is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. And again, everybody has their off day, and I'd rather have the off day during joint practice rather than during a regular game and when it really does matter. And we are coming down to that time. We are about almost 3 weeks away from opening night on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys, which I am happy to say that I will be there. I finally secured my tickets, and I will be there with my wife and my friend. And it's going to be a great time. And I am so ready for meaningful Giants football. And it is so exciting to finally say it's almost here. So, again, going back to the first joint practice, which was this past Tuesday, the first team O line held up pretty well. Besides like Matt Pert against Aiden Hutchinson, but Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best defensive linemen on the Detroit Lions, if not one of the best upcoming defensive linemen in the league. Amon-Ra St. Brown just got the best of everyone. He is who he is, and he's one of the top receivers, and again, an upcoming receiver in the NFL on top of it. So the cornerbacks did struggle with him in the beginning of the first joint practice. And another thing I saw the reporters that were there that stated that the way Brian Dable runs their practice is very light compared to some other NFL teams. The reasoning that could go behind the way Brian Dable runs these practices very light compared to other NFL teams is because of the history of injuries that the Giants have had in the last 10 years during practices. They have been one of the most injury-prone teams in the NFL throughout every single year for the last 10 years. So Brian Dable has been functioning these practices very differently. It's not saying that he's going light or he is just making it easy for them. He's going hard, but he's just doing it in a different form where these players are not going to be exhausted and they're overworking their body and then end up, getting long-term injuries that last the entire year. So they have statistic people that work on the sideline that study how fast these receivers are going or at how fast these people are making cuts. So they make sure they give a lot of these star players basically on the New York Giants rest days to make sure that they're not overworking their body because they overworked yesterday. So they're trying to avoid, again, long-term injuries. So what happened in the joint practice the first day is that the Lions came out firing on all cylinders. They were ready to hit, and the Giants weren't really as prepared. They weren't really prepared to get hit. And when it was happening. It was definitely caught off guard, and the offense was definitely thrown off. And it was a rough day for the offense overall, besides the offensive line. There was obviously a good couple plays there, but again, the offense was just off. And again, rather be off during the off season rather than during a game. So the media, of course, ate this up and decided to rip apart Daniel Jones. And of course, fans started, panicking and pressing the panic button, which is way too soon to press the panic button. We haven't even had a game one yet, especially a preseason game at this point. So there's no reason to press nowhere near a panic button, especially when Daniel Jones has had the best training camp his entire NFL career, because he has weapons now and should be a good offensive line, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So the media ate this up, and it was a long day on Tuesday. I was like, oh, here we go again. The media is going to destroy Daniel Jones, even though, again, no quarterback can just have an off practice. So day two came, and look at that. It was a complete turnaround. Daniel Jones absolutely destroyed the Lions starting defense on 11 on 11s and 7 on 7s. He went 7 for 7 in the red zone for touchdowns, and they were all spread out through the ball with Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, Darius Slayton twice, and Darius Slayton with this circus catch, with Daniel Jones with this circus throw across his body, which was very impressive. And it was a live play, which was really impressive. So the O-line has been really holding up well. And that's the one thing the reporters have been saying. The O-line is really holding up well. So that is something that the Giants have been trying to work on with, the Dave Gettleman era, as he wanted to make sure he boosted up this offensive line, which never ended up happening. He attempted, but it was a fail overall. So now adding, John Michael Schmitz and then Evan Neal with the second year, and then Andrew Thomas is one of the best tackles in the league. Those are the best anchors that you could have on the offensive line. And then now you're adding, with weapons now, Darren Waller, Cole Beasley, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins. So we'll see what happens, but this is going to be, I'm very confident with this offense of how they've been playing throughout the practices, and especially the way they came out in the second practice and redeemed themselves. They were always the second half team as last year. They would come out a little flat during the first half, but the second half they would finish these games. And now that they have more players and more players around and bigger puzzle pieces to solidify this team, I think this is going to become a well-oiled machine eventually this year. And then the following years when they start really, really building this team and adding depth into it, which they have already started. So on top of that, the Giants defense forced 3 fumbles during practice, which was insane. Kayvon Thibodeau landed on 2 of them, and it was a great day for the defense. The defense had it on the line, starting offensive line and starting offense in general. So it was a great day to see, the Giants defense finally are coming to life, and they're young and they're developing. And we have got some stars on this defense that are going to their second year, third year in the NFL, and some rookies that are expected to be doing big things, like Deonte Banks, the first round pick this year. And he made some good plays. He started off camp pretty rough, and he was getting targeted a lot. And that was, on purpose. Brian Dable came out that he want Daniel Jones to target anybody that was basically on Deonte Banks and make sure, put the pressure on. And it looks like it's paying off, because now he is starting to get targeted a lot less. He would go practices without even getting targeted. So he's making a lot of good plays when he needs to, and he's very aggressive right off the ball, which could be a negative thing for his game, but he's going to be working out those kinks and making sure that, it doesn't turn into a negative. So now we're going to go into the preseason game, like I said, which the Giants end up losing 21-16, which came down to, unfortunately, a special teams error, which were several of them, unfortunately. And Brian Dable was pretty upset on the sideline. As you saw on the internet, he gave a dirty look to the special teams coordinator as he walked by as soon as they gave up the touchdown, which ended up costing us the game. So we cannot let that happen. I know it's only preseason, but again, the Giants' special teams, the last 2 years especially, have been pretty horrific, and they have cost us field positions and games almost. And sometimes they do cost us games. Last year they did, but the Seattle game can't happen. And Brian Dable made sure he's letting the players know. As another video went on the line, Brian Dable yelling and ripping it apart against the special teams and the offensive line in general. So it can't happen during the regular season. You got to get down the field, make those tackles. You can't give up a 95-yard touchdown on a punt return. It just can't happen. It's just unacceptable. So to start off the very first play, Jason Pinnock, he had one interception right off the bat, picked him right off, and it was a great play. It was a QB hit right off the bat, and first play, like I said, Jason Pinnock with the interception. He had one tackle for a loss, and then he played 5 plays in general. And then Deontay Banks held his own and stopped Jameson from getting any catches on him. So he had 22 coverage snaps, 3 targets, 0 catches allowed, and then he had a 39.6 passer rating, which was great. And then to talk about one of the biggest parts is John Michael Schmitz. He had a 19 pass blocking snaps, and he had 0 pressures allowed. He looked absolutely dominant out there, which is why we drafted him and which is why he was the best center in the draft this year. And it's finally showing in this preseason game of why he got drafted where he did and why the media thought so highly of him. He is going to be ready for week 1, and I am so excited to finally see a solidified center for the New York Giants. We haven't had one since maybe O'Hara, so it's been a long time for us to find a real solid center. And Giants fans, this is something to be so excited about because if Evan Neal just takes a step up this year, which it looks like he has, the offensive line could take a massive step when you have Andrew Thomas on your left side, Evan Neal on your right, and then Schmitz in the middle. You can't ask for anything better. And that'll give Daniel Jones time. It'll give Saquon Barkley holes to run through. It is going to be an exciting time if this offensive line can, 1, stay healthy, and 2, just be better than they were last year, which I think they can be, especially what John Michael Schmitz has already shown already. So this is just something great to see, and he did great during the joint practices as well. So this was great to see that he was able to develop it through the game itself, and we'll see what happens after that. So Tommy DeVito played majority of the game. Tyrod Taylor played for about the first quarter. He looked very off throughout the entire game while he was in. And his throws are way off, and he just didn't look comfortable out there, which goes into the one major flaw in this game. And one of the biggest reasons we lost this game on top of special teams was this offensive line, the backups behind the backups. Corey Cunningham and Wyatt Davis, it was pretty unwatchable during the second half. We had a 13-3 lead going to halftime, and it was like watching paint dry, watching this offensive line try to block for Tommy DeVito. He was running for his life. So got some numbers here. For Corey Cunningham and Wyatt Davis, they combined for 14 pressures, 4 sacks, and 10 QB hurries, and 2 penalties on top of it. Just those 2 players alone. And they struggled right off the snap. They wouldn't even look like they were trying. As soon as the defensive end would put an arm around them, they would just get clear in, or even not even get touched, and they would get Tommy DeVito was running for his life. So we just got to hope that offensive line just stays healthy this year because we can't afford these players going in the game and replacing like an Evan Neal or an Andrew Thomas if they go down because they struggle against third stringers and it was like effortlessly bad and unwatchable at times. And Giants fans were not happy seeing this on TV. It was all over the media, all over Twitter and or X now. So it's been it was a rough patch to watch during this time. But again, we'll see what happens. But the positive part, Cole Beasley got a few snaps and he looked pretty solid out there, and same with Jamison Crowder. So we'll see if these two make a final run for the spots for maybe the 6th, 7th slot receiver. So as what we said in the beginning, they're like the slot machines because the Giants are filled with them right now. And the room's getting pretty filled and the competitiveness is pretty high. So we'll see what happens with, where I think Cole Beasley is definitely probably going to make the team. I think Jamison Crowder is probably going to be in the outside looking in, unfortunately. But it's a good problem to have. The Giants have never had this problem in plenty of years. So I'm excited to see, how this will develop. I mean, we have our second preseason game coming up this week on Friday night against the Carolina Panthers. So we'll see some Bryce Young action. And Brian Dable did say in his press conference that he wants to get these starters in, like Daniel Jones and some of the starters, to get some snaps. So we'll see if they get him in maybe this game or if not the last game, which is in 2 weeks. So we're coming up to crunch time right now. Giants football just, had their first preseason game. We're about to start week 1 football in a few weeks, less than a month. And this is the best time of the year. Football's on from now all the way till February. So buckle up. It's going to be a long season. And I am so excited to break down this season with all you guys. And I'm excited to talk about and break down the games and give you live reactions as well. So I'm hoping to get to a couple games this year, as I already am going to the Cowboys-Giants opening Sunday night football game. I do have a plan for a couple of other games I do want to attend this year. And we'll break them down. And then I have some special guests that I have some ideas for that I'm going to have on for some of these games that we're going to be playing this year. So some fellow Eagles fans, Cowboys fans, and some Giants fans I'm going to have on. We're going to break down some of the games and go over each teams, and it's going to be a great time. So I'm excited to drop more new content. I have so much great ideas that I have, and thank you so much for listening. So please subscribe, please like on the bottom, and I appreciate it so much, guys. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.